The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with the ethereal blue light that signified an emergency session. Representatives from over 300 worlds sat in concentric rings around the central podium, their diverse forms, some gaseous, some crystalline, some vaguely humanoid, others defying easy classification, all radiating the same emotion: fear. Ambassador Krell Vornak of the Zentari, his scaled skin reflecting the emergency lights in iridescent patterns, stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, observing the proceedings with growing concern. The technoplague was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Already, 17 core worlds had reported critical infrastructure failures, and the pattern suggested exponential growth. The situation requires immediate containment protocols, announced High Counselor Mestor, her translucent body pulsing with each syllable. All affected systems must be isolated and purged according to Standard Protocol 7291B. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly. Standard procedures. Established protocols. The methodical, careful approach that had served the Galactic Council for 12,000 years. Krell suppressed a sigh. He had spent enough time among humans to recognize when established wisdom might prove insufficient. The technoplague didn't behave like any previous digital infection. It adapted too quickly, changed its attack vectors too unpredictably. High Counselor, Krell's voice carried through the chamber. Preliminary reports indicate Protocol 7291B has been ineffective on Proxima 3 in Tau Ce. The infection bypasses isolation measures and continues to spread. Ambassador Ilarn, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate hovering apparatus, flared with indignation. Perhaps the implementations were flawed. Our protocols have served us for millennia. Yet this threat appears unprecedented, Krell countered. It may require unconventional approaches. The chamber fell silent. Everyone present understood what, or rather, who, Krell was suggesting. Ilarn's energy form pulsed with agitation. You cannot possibly be suggesting involving the Terrans. Their membership is barely decades old. Their methods are unpredictable, dangerous. Their methods are adaptive, Krell replied. And in this case, that may be exactly what we need. High Counselor Mestor raised a tendril to silence the brewing argument. Ambassador Vornak, what specifically are you proposing? Krell straightened his posture. I propose we invite a small team of Terran experts to examine the technoplague under strict supervision. Their perspective may provide insights our traditional approaches have missed. Absolutely not. Ilarn's containment field crackled with outrage. The humans still barely understand the technology we've shared with them. Their own history is rife with reckless experimentation and catastrophic failures. We would be inviting chaos into our most sensitive systems. Several other council members nodded in agreement. Despite decades of official membership, humans remained controversial figures in galactic politics. Their rapid technological advancement, achieved through what many species considered dangerously haphazard methods, combined with their emotional unpredictability, made them difficult allies. If I may, Krell said carefully, I recommend we hear from the Terran liaison directly. Dr. Eris Thorne has been monitoring the situation and may have relevant insights. After a tense moment of deliberation, Mestor gave her approval. The central platform shimmered as a holographic projection formed, revealing a human woman with short, tousled dark hair and eyes that darted quickly between the council members. Dr. Eris Thorne wore the standard blue uniform of the Terran Science Division, though it appeared rumpled, as if she had been wearing it for several days. Dr. Thorne, Mestor acknowledged, the council is discussing the technoplague crisis. Ambassador Vornak suggests your expertise might be valuable. What observation can you offer? Thorne cleared her throat, visibly uncomfortable with the formality of the council chamber. Thank you, High Counselor. I've been analyzing the infection patterns, and, well, to be blunt, your standard containment protocols aren't just failing, they seem to be accelerating the spread in some cases. Ilarn flared again. Impossible. Our protocols are flawless. With respect, Ambassador, Thorne continued, her voice gaining confidence. They're flawless against known threats. But this isn't behaving like a normal viral code or corrupted AI subroutine. It's demonstrating learning capabilities beyond anything in your threat databases. She gestured, and a complex visualization appeared beside her. See these mutation patterns? They specifically target and exploit the standardized nature of your security systems. The more uniformly you respond, the more effectively it adapts. Krell noticed the council members shifting uncomfortably. Standardization and uniformity were cornerstones of galactic governance. The very idea that these qualities could become vulnerabilities was deeply unsettling. "What would you propose, Dr. Thorne?" Krell asked. "Let me assemble a small team. We'll develop custom countermeasures that don't follow standard patterns. Unpredictability might be our best weapon here." Unpredictability, Ilarn echoed derisively. The Terran solution to everything. Thorne's expression hardened. "With respect, Ambassador, when facing an adaptive adversary, predictability is weakness." After hours of heated debate, a compromise was reached. Dr. Thorne would be permitted to form a small research team of 5 human experts, working under strict supervision from an oversight committee headed by Ambassador Ilarn. Their mandate was limited: analyze the technoplague and make recommendations, but implement nothing without full council approval. As the session adjourned, Krell approached Thorne's hologram. "That could have gone worse," he offered. Thorne gave a short, humorless laugh. "They're still treating us like children playing with explosives." Many council members remember when their own species were at that stage. Krell replied diplomatically, "It takes time to build trust. Time we may not have." Thorne said, her expression grave. "This thing is evolving faster than I let on in there. Whatever it is, it's unlike anything in your records or ours." Krell lowered his voice. "How bad? If it keeps accelerating at the current rate? Complete collapse of integrated systems across the council worlds within 14 standard days. Maybe less." Krell felt a cold sensation along his spine. "Then I suggest you work quickly, Doctor. And creatively." Thorne smiled for the first time, a determined gleam in her eyes. "Creative is what humans do best, Ambassador, for better or worse." As her hologram faded, Krell couldn't shake the feeling that the Galactic Council was about to discover exactly what that meant. The Oversight Committee's observation chamber on Centauri Station had been designed for dignified, orderly scientific work. 3 days after the Terran team's arrival, it resembled what Ambassador Ilarn could only describe as a chaotic nest. Displays covered every available surface, many showing incomprehensible data visualizations that changed faster than most species could process. The 5 humans moved between workstations with what seemed like random urgency, their conversations a bewildering mix of technical jargon, Earth cultural references, and occasional bursts of profanity that the translation system struggled to interpret appropriately. At the center of the storm was Dr. Eris Thorne, who appeared to have slept even less since her council appearance. She stood surrounded by holographic code structures, manipulating them with gestures that seemed almost violent in their intensity. "This approach is getting us nowhere," she muttered, collapsing a complex visualization with a sweep of her hand. "The encryption adaptive layers are shifting too quickly." "What about the quantum entanglement theory?" called out Specialist Maya Okonkwo from across the room, not looking up from her own screens. "Too slow to implement," responded Thorne. "By the time we establish sufficient entanglement nodes, the plague will have already adapted." Vahan Kapoor, the team's systems architecture expert, spun in his chair. "What if we don't try to beat it at its own game? What if we go old school instead?" "Define old school," Thorne said, her attention immediately focused. "I'm talking pre-standardization exploits. The kind of dirty, messy hacking that went extinct when the council standardized everything." Kapoor grinned. "The digital equivalent of archaeology." Ilarn's energy form pulsed with alarm. "You are suggesting using primitive, unauthorized intrusion methods on council systems?" "Absolutely not." The humans exchanged glances that Ilarn couldn't interpret, but which made him deeply uncomfortable. "Ambassador," Thorne said carefully, "We're running out of options. The conventional approaches have all failed, and the infection rate has doubled in just the last 6 hours. That does not justify abandoning security protocols that have protected the Council for millennia," Alarn insisted. From the corner, Sophia Chun. No, Sophia Chong. Alarn corrected himself, still struggling with human naming conventions, looked up from her terminal. She was the quietest of the team, specializing in pattern recognition algorithms. "Ambassador," she said softly, "I think you misunderstand. The protocols aren't protecting you anymore. They become the attack surface. Your standardization is this thing's greatest advantage." Alarn's containment field flickered with indignation. "Impossible." Actually, a new voice joined in as Ambassador Krell Vornak entered the chamber. "Dr. Thorne's team may be correct. 3 more core systems have just fallen. Tau Ceti's entire defense grid is dark." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Tau Ceti was home to one of the Council's primary data archives and defense coordination centers. Thorne locked eyes with Krell. "How bad?" "Complete system failure across all 17 connected platforms. Casualty reports are still coming in, but at least 20,000 sentients were on life support systems tied to the grid." Thorne closed her eyes for a moment, her face tight with something that might have been grief or rage or both. When she opened them, her gaze settled on Alarn with new intensity. 20,000 dead while we debate methodology, Ambassador. How many more are you willing to sacrifice to protocol?" Before Alarn could respond, Kapoor called out from his workstation. "Wait, I found something. There's a pattern here I don't think anyone's noticed." All attention turned to his display, where a complex visualization showed infection spread patterns across multiple systems. "It's not just adapting," he explained, excitement building in his voice. "It's guiding the adaptations. Look at these decision trees. They're too structured for emergent behavior." Sophia moved to his side, studying the patterns. "He's right. This isn't a plague. It's a weapon. Someone created this deliberately." Alarn's energy field pulsed with shock. "Not just someone," Thorne said, looking closer at the data. "Something much older than us. Look at these base algorithms. They don't match any modern programming architecture. They're ancient." The implications hung heavy in the room. "We need a new approach," Thorne finally announced. "If this is a weaponized system, then containment and disinfection won't work. We need to fight back directly." "How?" Krell asked. Thorne exchanged glances with her team, a silent communication passing between them. "We create our own countervirus. Something as adaptive and aggressive as this plague, but under our control. Something that can hunt it down and destroy it at its source." Alarn's energy form crackled with alarm. "You propose to release another self-replicating program into our systems? One designed with the same chaotic human methodologies that have caused so many disasters on your own world?" "Absolutely not." "Ambassador," Thorne's voice was steel now, 20,000 are already dead. Millions more will follow if this continues. We're past the point where safety is an option. The Council would never approve. Then don't ask them. Thorne cut in. Give us 48 hours to develop the countervirus. If we fail, you've lost nothing but time. If we succeed, we save billions of lives. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Krell spoke. What guarantees can you offer that this countervirus won't cause as much damage as the plague itself? None, Thorne admitted bluntly. But right now, doing nothing guarantees catastrophe. Krell turned to Alarn. I believe we should grant them the time they request. The Oversight Committee will monitor their work continuously. Alarn's containment field fluctuated in agitation. This violates every security protocol we have. Yes, Krell agreed simply. It does. After a long moment, Alarn's energy form seemed to contract slightly, a gesture Krell recognized as reluctant acceptance. 48 hours. Not 1 second more. And nothing is implemented without my final approval. Thor nodded curtly. Understood. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. As the human team immediately fell into intense activity, Krell moved closer to Alarn. It may interest you to know, he said quietly, that the Council is already in emergency session discussing the Tau Ceti disaster. I suspect by the time your 48 hours are up, they'll be desperate enough to approve almost anything. Ilarn's energy flickered. That is precisely what concerns me, Ambassador. Desperation makes for poor judgment, especially when combined with human methodologies. Krell watched as Thorn directed her team with focused intensity, their movements becoming more coordinated as they mobilized around the new approach. Perhaps, he acknowledged, or perhaps it's exactly what we need. The Oversight Committee chamber had transformed again over the following 36 hours. Gone was any pretense of order. Screens were clustered in seemingly random configurations. Makeshift computing arrays had been assembled from various components, and the humans had abandoned formal uniforms in favor of comfortable clothing that allowed them to work without break. What disturbed Ilarn most, however, was not the physical chaos but the methodological disorder. The humans worked in a manner that defied all proper scientific protocols. They argued vehemently about approaches, sometimes switching strategies, entirely based on what they called gut feelings. They incorporated disparate elements from outdated systems alongside cutting-edge theoretical models with no apparent concern for compatibility testing. Worst of all, they seemed to be enjoying the challenge. "This is madness," Ilarn commented to Krell as they observed from a separate monitoring station. "Look at them. No formal testing protocols, no peer review process, not even proper documentation of their methods." Krell, who had spent more time studying humans, saw something different. They're adapting in real time. Watch how they communicate. They've developed shorthand for complex concepts. They anticipate each other's needs. They build on ideas collaboratively. "It's still dangerously unstructured," Ilarn insisted. On the main floor, tension had been building for hours as the core of the countervirus took shape. Dr. Thorne had barely moved from her central station, where she was integrating the various components created by her team. "The adaptive matrix is still too rigid," she announced, frustration evident in her voice. "It's following patterns that the plague will recognize and counter." Kapoor rubbed his bloodshot eyes. "We've pushed the randomization parameters to the limit. Any more, and it becomes too unpredictable even for us to control." "What if that's what we need?" Sophia suggested quietly. All eyes turned to her. "What if the problem is that we're still thinking like programmers? We're trying to create something that follows rules, just complex ones." "And what's the alternative?" asked Maya, stretching her cramped shoulders. "Something that thinks more like us. Not just adaptive, but intuitive. Something that can make creative leaps." A heavy silence fell over the team as they considered the implications. "You're talking about incorporating actual consciousness elements," Thorne said slowly. "Not just advanced AI, but something with real sentience." Sophia nodded. "The plague keeps winning because it can predict how code behaves. But it can't predict how people think. That's illegal under at least 6 different council regulations," the 5th team member, neurosystems expert Thomas Wilson, pointed out. "Creating digital sentience without safeguards is a Class 1 violation. Not to mention ethically questionable," Maya added. "I think we're past worrying about regulations," Thorne said quietly. She looked up at the observation booth where Ilarn and Krell watched. "But there's another problem. Even if we wanted to do this, creating true digital sentience would take months, maybe years of work." Sophia's eyes never left her screen. "Unless we use existing consciousness." The implication hung in the air for several seconds before Kapoor let out a low whistle. "You're talking about uploading someone. One of us." "Not a full upload," Sophia clarified. "More like a digital extension of consciousness. We map core cognitive patterns and integrate them into the countervirus structure." From the observation booth, Ilarn's energy form pulsed with alarm. "Ambassador Vornak, you must stop this immediately. They are discussing violations of the most fundamental council laws regarding artificial intelligence and consciousness manipulation." Krell's scaled face remained impassive. Let them finish explaining the concept, at least. Back on the main floor, the discussion had grown more intense. The technology for partial consciousness mapping exists, Wilson confirmed, but it's experimental at best, dangerous at worst. The neurological strain could cause permanent damage. And whoever did it would be connected to the counter-virus. Maya asked. They'd experience what it experiences? Sophia nodded. To some degree, yes. It would be like extending your consciousness into the digital realm, maintaining a connection to your physical body, but experiencing the networks directly. That's suicide, Kapoor said flatly. The psychological trauma alone could be devastating. Never mind what happens if the plague attacks the counter-virus directly. All eyes gradually turned to Thorne, who had gone quiet during the exchange. She stared at the visualization of their partial counter-virus, watching its simulated interactions with plague samples. After a long moment, she looked up. It would work, wouldn't it? She asked Sophia directly. Sophia met her gaze. I believe so, yes. The counter-virus would gain unpredictability, creativity, intuition, everything we have that pure code doesn't. And it would need to be someone with intimate knowledge of the counter-virus architecture, Thorne continued. Someone who could guide it effectively. The implication was clear. Before anyone could object, Thorne turned to face the observation booth. Ambassador Alarn, Ambassador Vornak, she called out. I need to speak with you. Privately. Absolutely not. Alarn's containment field crackled with such intensity that the meeting room's lighting flickered. What you are proposing violates every principle of responsible technology used the Council stands for. Thorne sat calmly across the conference table, her exhaustion visible but her resolve unwavering. Ambassador, I understand your concerns, but we're facing an unprecedented threat that's already claimed tens of thousands of lives and will claim millions more within days. By your own admission, this procedure could kill you, Krell said, his voice somber. And even if it doesn't, the psychological effects of consciousness extension are unknown. We don't have time for a better option, Thorne replied simply. The plague has already adapted to counter our conventional approaches. It's learning faster than we could develop new strategies. We need something truly unpredictable, human intuition operating directly within the digital realm. And what happens if you succeed? You create a new digital entity with human consciousness characteristics, released into council systems without any oversight or control mechanisms. The potential for catastrophe extends far beyond the current crisis. Thorne leaned forward. We're building fail-safes. Once the plague is neutralized, the counter-virus will deactivate. My consciousness extension will be retrieved. You cannot guarantee that, Alarn insisted. Once released, such a hybrid entity may develop its own priorities. That's a risk we have to take, Thorne said quietly. Ambassador, I know the Council values stability and control above almost everything else. Those are worthy goals in peaceful times. But right now, they're luxuries we cannot afford. Krell, who had been silent for some time, finally spoke. If the Council were to approve this, and that remains a significant if, who besides yourself would undergo this procedure? Thorne shook her head. Just me. I want to ask my team to take risks I'm not willing to take myself. And as project lead, I have the most comprehensive understanding of the counter-virus architecture. You would sacrifice yourself, Alarn observed, his tone shifting slightly. I would do my job, Thorne corrected, which is to find solutions to problems that seem unsolvable. After a long silence, Krell straightened his posture. I will present your proposal to the Emergency Council session. I'll make no promises about their response. Thank you, Thorne said, rising from her seat. But please stress the time factor. Every hour we delay, more systems fall. As she left the room, Alarn's energy form dimmed slightly, a sign of deep thought among his kind. The humans continue to confound my expectations, he admitted. I anticipated recklessness, but not self-sacrifice. Perhaps they are both, Krell replied. And perhaps that is exactly what we need. The Emergency Council session was the shortest in recorded history. With over 40 core systems now compromised and casualties mounting into the hundreds of thousands, the desperate representatives approved Thorne's plan with minimal debate. Even Alarn, to Krell's surprise, spoke in favor of the proposal, though he insisted on rigid monitoring protocols. The doctor's willingness to place herself at risk has demonstrated a commitment to the greater good that cannot be ignored, Ilaran told the council. While I maintain grave reservations about the methodology, I acknowledge that conventional approaches have failed completely. Within hours of approval, Centauri Station's central computing hub had been transformed. The massive circular chamber, normally maintained at precise temperature and humidity levels for optimal equipment function, now accommodated a hastily constructed neural interface chair at its center. Surrounding it were the specialized systems Thorne's team had assembled, a chaotic blend of council technology and modified human equipment. Thorne herself sat in the neural interface chair, electrodes attached to her temples and the base of her skull, while her team made final adjustments. Despite the gravity of the moment, she appeared remarkably calm. Neural mapping at 97% compatibility, Sophia reported, monitoring a display showing Thorne's brain activity. Consciousness extension parameters stable. Countervirus architecture integration complete, Kapoor added, awaiting final activation sequence. Ilaran hovered nearby, his energy form tightly contained, a sign of extreme tension. Dr. Thorne, I feel compelled to note once more the unprecedented nature of what you are attempting. There remains significant risk, not only to yourself, but potentially to broader council systems. Thorne offered a tired smile. Noted, Ambassador. But we're out of alternatives and out of time. Krell, approach your chair. The council has authorized me to convey their appreciation for your service, regardless of the outcome. Let's hope they can convey it to me in person afterward, Thorne replied. She took a deep breath and looked at her team, initiating consciousness extension on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Sophia activated the sequence. Immediately, Thorne's body stiffened, her eyes widening as the neural interface engaged fully. The displays around the room erupted with activity, showing the countervirus activating and beginning to spread through the connected systems. Extension successful, Sophia reported, though her voice shook slightly. Consciousness integration at 89% and stable. Countervirus deployment proceeding, Kapoor confirmed. It's moving faster than our simulations predicted, much faster. On the main display, they could see a visualization of the countervirus spreading through council networks. Unlike the rigid patterns of traditional security programs, it moved organically, adapting its path moment by moment, sometimes doubling back or taking seemingly illogical detours. It's working, Maya whispered. Look, the plague is retreating in sectors 7 through 19. Ilaran's energy field pulsed with something like astonishment. The movement patterns are unlike anything I've seen in digital systems. Almost organic. That's Eris, Wilson said quietly. Not just her consciousness template, but her actual awareness guiding the countervirus in real time. In a neural interface chair, Thorne remained rigid, her eyes open but unseeing, lost in whatever digital landscape she now partially inhabited. Occasionally her fingers would twitch or her lips would move as if speaking, though no sound emerged. Hours passed this way, with the countervirus steadily gaining ground against the plague. Systems began to recover. Emergency services came back online, and the casualty reports finally stopped increasing. It's working beyond our best projections, Kapoor reported, his exhaustion temporarily forgotten in the excitement of success. The countervirus has contained the plague in over 60% of affected systems and is accelerating. But Sophia, still monitoring Thorne's neural patterns, looked increasingly concerned. Her consciousness integration is deepening, she warned. It's now at 94% and still increasing. If it reaches full integration, she may not be able to return, Wilson finished grimly. Can you reverse the process? Krell asked urgently. Not without potentially destroying the countervirus before it completes its mission, Sophia explained, and possibly causing severe neural damage to Eris in the process. A new alert suddenly flashed across the displays. The plague is changing its behavior, Kapoor announced, his voice tense. It's consolidating, concentrating its presence rather than spreading. Almost like it's gathering itself. It's recognized the threat, Alarn observed. It's adapting again. On another display, a pattern analysis was taking shape. I think we're seeing its true nature now, Maya said, studying the data. These code structures, they're ancient, but they show signs of extremely advanced design. This isn't just a plague or even a weapon. It's some kind of dormant artificial intelligence. An AI from a previous era of galactic history? Krell questioned. How was that possible? The galaxy is billions of years old, Ambassador, Wilson replied. Our civilization represents just the latest chapter. Who knows what technological heights previous civilizations reached before they fell? Another alert sounded, more urgent than the first. The plague, or AI, whatever it is launching a direct counterattack against our virus, Kapoor reported. It's specifically targeting the human consciousness elements. In the neural interface chair, Thorne's body suddenly convulsed, a gasp escaping her lips. Neural patterns destabilizing, Sophia called out, her fingers flying across her controls. The attack is causing feedback into Eris's physical consciousness. Disengage her. Alarn ordered immediately. Withdraw the human element before permanent damage occurs. We can't, Sophia said, her voice cracking with stress. The integration is too deep now. Forced separation could kill her, and even if it didn't, the countervirus would collapse without her guiding it. On the main display, they could see the two digital entities locked in combat across the networks, like two storms colliding. For several tense minutes, the battle appeared evenly matched. Then something unexpected happened. The countervirus is changing, Kapoor said, bewilderment clear in his voice. It's incorporating new elements we didn't design. Sophia was staring at her neural monitoring displays in disbelief. It's not just Eris anymore. There are multiple consciousness patterns emerging within the countervirus structure. In growing astonishment, they watched as additional human neural patterns became visible in the data, patterns matching the rest of Thorne's team. You're joining her, Krell realized, looking at the four remaining humans. Ow! Wilson held up a small neural interface device. Emergency backup plan. We didn't tell you because we knew it wouldn't be approved. Once we saw Eris was in trouble, we established our own partial consciousness extensions. Without the full interface apparatus, we can only achieve limited integration, Maya explained. But it should be enough to help Eris, to help the countervirus adapt faster than the plague can counter. Alarn's energy field pulsed with a complex mix of emotions. You knowingly risked yourselves, violated explicit council directives. To save billions of lives, yes, Kapoor cut in unapologetically. Just like Eris did. On the displays, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The countervirus, now guided by 5 partial human consciousnesses working in concert, surged forward with renewed strength and truly unpredictable patterns. It encircled the ancient AI, cutting off its escape routes, disrupting its ability to adapt. It's working, Sophia reported, her voice strained by the effort of maintaining her dual awareness. The plague is losing cohesion. We've identified its core, Wilson added, his eyes unfocused as his attention split between physical and digital reality. Some kind of central control node that's been hiding deep in the abandoned archives of Tau Ceti. For the next hour, the humans remained in their strange, partial trance state, guiding the countervirus in its final assault on the ancient AI. Krell and Alarn could only watch, aware they were witnessing something unprecedented in Council history. Human consciousness operating directly within the digital infrastructure that connected thousands of worlds. Finally, a cascading series of alerts signaled the end of the conflict. The visualization showed the countervirus surrounding the now-exposed core of the ancient AI, systematically dismantling its structure until nothing remained but isolated, harmless fragments. It's done, Kapoor announced, his voice weak as he removed his neural interface. The plague is neutralized. One by one, the team members disconnected from their impromptu interfaces, each showing signs of extreme exhaustion. All except Dr. Thorne, who remained motionless in the central chair, still fully connected. Eris. Sophia approached her anxiously. We've won. It's time to come back. But the neural pattern displays told a different story. Thorne's consciousness remained deeply integrated with the countervirus, now at 98%. She can't disconnect, Wilson realized, checking the readings. The integration is too complete. What does that mean? Krell asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. It means, Sophia said quietly, that to extract her consciousness now would likely destroy both Eris and the countervirus. And the countervirus is still needed to finish cleansing the systems and prevent any plague remnants from reactivating. She knew this might happen, Maya said, her voice breaking slightly. She calculated the risk from the beginning. In the neural interface chair, Thorne's lips moved again, forming words though no sound came. Sophia leaned closer, then straightened with an expression of sad determination. She can still communicate through the monitoring systems, Sophia explained. She's saying the integration is permanent now. She exists primarily within the networks. Her physical body is just an anchor, but her consciousness has essentially transferred. Can she survive this way? Alarn asked, his energy form pulsing with what might have been concern. Wilson shook his head. Not indefinitely. The human brain isn't designed to maintain this kind of divided existence. Eventually, the strain will be too much. How long? Krell asked. Days, maybe weeks, Wilson replied. Long enough to ensure the plague is truly gone and systems are fully restored. Krell moved to stand before Thorne's seated form, addressing her as if she could hear him normally. Dr. Thorne, the Council will be informed of your sacrifice. Your actions have saved countless lives across the galaxy. Again, Thorne's lips moved silently. Sophia, translated, she says, tell them it was worth it, and tell them humans make the best allies in a crisis, even if we break all the rules. Despite everything, Krell found himself making the Zentari gesture of profound respect, a motion he had rarely used in his diplomatic career. I will tell them exactly that, Doctor. 1 month later, the Grand Assembly Hall was again filled to capacity, but the mood could not have been more different from the emergency session that had started everything. The crisis had passed. Systems across Council space had been restored, the ancient AI thoroughly eliminated, and a recovery effort was well underway. Dr. Eris Thorne had maintained her dual existence for 16 days, far longer than medical experts had predicted possible, ensuring the complete elimination of the technoplague before her physical form finally succumbed to the strain. Her consciousness, however, had achieved something unprecedented, a full digital transfer in her final moments. A contained version of this consciousness, carefully isolated from broader networks but preserved intact, now existed within a specialized quantum storage device that sat on a pedestal in the center of the council chamber. The debate that had raged for weeks among council members had reached its climax. At issue was not just the status of Thorne's digital consciousness, itself a profound ethical question, but the broader implications of the human approach to the crisis. Alarn, to the surprise of many, had become an unexpectedly nuanced voice in these discussions. His energy form shimmered as he addressed the council. What the humans did violated our most sacred protocols and safeguards, he acknowledged. Their methods were chaotic, dangerous, and at times seemingly reckless. Yet I cannot deny that without these very qualities, we would have faced catastrophic collapse. He paused, his energy field pulsing in a pattern that indicated deep philosophical consideration. I have spent many cycles contemplating what this means for our future relationship with Terra. Their approach to problems is fundamentally different from the careful, measured wisdom the Council has cultivated over millennia. This difference creates both opportunity